Coming up, what an excellent day for spider walking. Spider walk, does whatever a spider walk can. Does whatever a contortionist, gymnast, stunt person can.
Yeah, the more we're thinking about spider walking, the less I think this is how a spider walks in this movie.
Somebody in 1973 just stands up in the middle of the film. It's like, that's not how a spider walks.
Oh, well, they were different back then. They couldn't, they didn't have the technology to look that closely.
Oh, yes.
At a spider.
They just assume it's like, that's what spiders did. Yeah.
Gotta be what's going on, yeah.
I'm a licensed arachnologist, and no. Well, howdy, folks, and welcome to Minute 61 of The Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate The Exorcist minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. Okay, so let's get into this episode. Our minute begins with Chris standing, hands on hips, having just received the news that Burke is dead.
And it ends with a hand passing over Reagan's face.
Yes. But yeah, let's get back to the top of this minute here. Keenan, in the last minute, we had just heard some terrible news. Burke, Chris's dear friend and mentor, almost like a second father, is dead. But that's all we knew. But it's here that we get a little bit more. The AD, Chuck, says he must have been drunk. He fell down from the top of the steps right outside. By the time he hit M Street, he had broken his neck.
That sounds very plausible to me.
Yes, it does. Now, there's a couple things that I want to talk about just in this first shot here. Remember, folks, I said it's sort of my habit to look at the actors who are not talking, who are reacting in a scene. Well, in this shot, we really don't have any other choice. The camera is on Chris. We're supposed to be watching Chris. And she is doing something she is reacting in this way that is completely un-Hollywood, if that makes any sense at all. I almost thought about opening this minute with a joke about how she looks kind of annoyed. Like, are you serious right now? And I guess I just did. But in actuality, I'm really in awe of this like subtle, almost against expectations type of reaction here. She's got her hands on her hips, and when Chuck begins to explain what must have happened, how Burke must have been drunk, that's when her mouth starts working. She starts to sort of chew on the air, and you see also her eyes start to blink rapidly. In fact, if you look close, you can actually see the moment that the news like literally hits her like a force, like a tidal wave. She sways a little bit. She takes a breath, but it's all so small and so subtle. Unless you are watching her, you might miss it. The way I read it was that Chris is trying to stay composed, but even then she's so still and so composed that you can actually see the shock happen to her body as she receives the news. It's amazing.
Yeah, again, like, film actors have to learn this news 6, 7, 8, 9 times, as you're acting, right? So you have to pretend every single time, or act every single time is a better word for it.
Right,
This is the first time hearing about this, and to put yourself in this position is quite something. I like that you say that at first she's almost in denial or something like, oh, are you serious? I mean, one of my worst memories is I had heard that someone had died, and my reaction was, someone told me that someone had died, and I said, "Are you serious?" You know, and they were like, "Why would I joke about that? Right. That's the worst thing ever." This is I still am haunted by that by that response. But yeah, she's experiencing a little bit of that. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. And I'm sorry about that, Keenan. But yeah, like it is. It's one of those like. We were talking before, like about, being present, at all times. Like, how do you be present and then be surprised by this? And then, and act as if all of the emotions are kind of like hitting you for the first time. Right. However you do it, that's what Ellen Burstyn is doing right now.
Right.
And we can see it. We can see everything playing out. And it's not this, this big Hollywood dramatic, like, like type thing. It's much more, I think grounded in reality than any other kind of like actions that I have ever seen.
Right.
Now, before we leave this shot, I want to go back to that thing we were talking about in the previous minutes, right? Like that nearness of unknown tragedy or danger, right? Remember, folks, like she was literally upstairs standing in the place that Burke was standing, right? Where Burke died. She closed the window as the sirens were still wailing. She literally missed that scene by minutes, right? Like just that fact is so freaky and so horrible and so sad that like I don't think my mind would be able to handle it, right? Like Keenan, you were talking about like, you know, when you experienced that news and being in a little bit of denial, right? Like if I was in Chris's shoes right now and I was getting this news that Burke died in this way, I would probably go into immediate denial. I would be like, Chuck, that's impossible. I was just up there. Burke wasn't up there. I just came from that place. Like I would run so quickly into how this doesn't make any sense. Like I was just there, for Christ's sakes. Like this can't be real. It's too random. It's too quick. It defies all logical sense. It defies all sense of decorum. That sounds weird, but like that's not how Burke was supposed to die. Again, it's so sudden and so random. Like if Chuck had come in there and said, Burke's dead, he was driving home from another party and he was drunk, right? Of course, Chris would be sad, but it would be different. There wouldn't be this weird, like extra feeling of like, this isn't supposed to happen this way. Like this wasn't in the script, like the script of your life. Like this doesn't thematically jive with everything that is Burke Dennings. Like this isn't, it's almost like this isn't fair. This is too surprising, too, like, again, it almost like rude. Like that the universe is doing this, you know?
Right. That's the other part of this as well, right? It's like rude that the universe is doing this when I have these other things going on. Like I am so not prepared for this because
and also that,
I have this sick daughter, and you know, and then all of a sudden this is more important, right? That Burke has died than from her perspective, the sick daughter,
right?
But it is, it's like this is not the time for this.
Right.
I've been thinking about this idea that you were postulating about, you know, she was upstairs and maybe she's starting to realize that. I have a question later on, I guess, about like, when does she start to put together that Reagan might have something to do with it, or that rather than falling from the stairs, that he was up in that room. That's not what Chuck says, right? Chuck says he was outside in the cold and tripped down the stairs, right? But yeah, this idea of like, God, I was in that position. I was almost there, right? It could have been me. And we see how much this kind of trauma affects the mind. Like we have very, very documented recent examples of this. I'm thinking about people who, you know, I'm going to give some of them the benefit of the doubt, right? About saying that like how gradually when they retell the stories, they get closer and closer to the epicenter of the disaster site, right?
Yes.
When you start telling the story over and over again. So yes, you were in Manhattan during 9/11, but as you start to process that, like your story starts to become like, well, I was downtown, or even if I wasn't, right? And that's I think that's very human, right? It's like, this is how I'm dealing with this. This is a major thing, and I'm a part of it. And we've seen people like, do you remember when Brian Williams, the NBC anchor, got caught exaggerating his story of Afghanistan? Did you see that?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So you could trace that. Like once people were like, what's going on here? Like we believe Brian Williams, he's like losing his mind. And you can go back and trace when he told the story at first, because he mentioned it over and over, he'd be like, yes, we were landing in this hot zone and we were really terrified that someone could shoot at us. And then later on, it was like, we were landing in this hot zone and people were shooting us. And we were landing in this hot zone and there was fire all around us, and you know, the helicopter, and we almost died. You know, like you could see him because it's so documented, because he's on camera, right? Of like making the story more and more and more intense of it, right? And I wonder if like Chris is starting to do that. How much does she realize up there, you know, of what has actually happened? I don't know if we have an answer in the movie exactly about when she starts to realize that it was, you know, maybe not that Reagan pushed her, but that he fell out of Reagan's open window that she was just touching.
Right. I'll have to go back into the book. I do believe there is. I mean, that is the thing that comes to a climax in the scene of, do you know what she did?
Right.
That's the demon kind of being like, this thing that you've been worrying about this whole time. Yes, I'm going to answer you now. Yes, it happened. But
in the meantime, you think that she is putting together before, without admitting to Chuck or Sharon, that he didn't fall down the stairs. He fell out the window.
Oh, not. Okay. So
yeah, because you were saying right that she was up there where it happened.
Right. So yeah, my answer to your question is twofold. Mm-hmm. Firstly, yeah, I think that she's concluding now that he fell from the window, but I don't think that she has put two and two together about Reagan yet.
Right. I agree. Yeah. That's where I think it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like, of course, when people are grieving, there's all sorts of, there's no right or wrong answer, right? To how to grieve. But she doesn't say, no, Mike, he was here, or sorry, not Mike, Tommy. What's his guy?
Mike, Tommy, Chuck.
Chuck, sorry.
All these one syllable names.
Right. So, but she
Burke.
doesn't say
Carl.
She doesn't say, right, like, no, Chuck, they're wrong. He didn't slip down the stairs. He fell out the window upstairs. He opened it because he was babysitting Reagan.
Right. Now, wait, is that... Hang on. So are you saying that Chuck is not even mentioning the window?
He doesn't, right? He just says that he slipped down the stairs outside.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even notice that. I kind of like came in here thinking that Chuck already knew that it was the window. But he doesn't mention the window.
He does not mention the window. He says that he fell down those giant Exorcist stairs.
Right.
He said, right up back, the Exorcist stairs.
The Exorcist stairs,
He fell down them. Those big scary stairs from the movie. Right.
Wait, you mean the famous Exorcist stairs?
Right.
I can't believe I live right next to the Exorcist stairs.
Yeah, if that's what it says in the script, or in Rocky, it's like Rocky runs up the Rocky stairs.
Yeah.
Right, but he they find him at the bottom of the stairs with his neck turned around.
Right.
And so they get there and they're like, okay, he fell and he tripped and he hit himself so many times that his neck turned all the way around.
The way around, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, he doesn't know anything about, no one knows anything about the window.
Right.
And I think we're going to, I think you're going to say what I was going to say. I think we're going to find out later when they're investigating this that you can't fall out the window down the stairs. You have to have a lot of force, right? It's a little bit more difficult. Like the stairs aren't right underneath it. You have to be really, really, really pushed, right?
Oh, I actually don't know about that.
I thought that's part of the investigation later of like, it would take a grown man to push him in such a way that he would reach the stairs.
Well, I think you're referring to something in the book, and maybe it's in the screenplay as well. That Kinderman says about the force of the like the fall couldn't have turned his neck,
right,
in that certain way.
Yeah, right.
So and he's saying like it must have been a powerful man, and that's why like all eyes are on Carl now. Carl is like suspect number one, right? Like the only person his head must have been twisted before he fell. It's impossible that it happened in the fall, and only a powerful man could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of exactly.
But yeah, and I guess to kind of like back this up as well, they wouldn't suspect the window because there's no broken glass. There's no like the window isn't broken, right? Like it's closed, or no, it's open when Chris gets home. Actually, why don't the cops just look up and see an open window with curtains fluttering out?
Because I think it's much more probable that a known drunk slipped down the Exorcist stairs because look at them. Yeah, they're just crazy.
These Exorcist stairs, I get like, these drunks just falling up and down these Exorcist stairs.
Right. For someone to say like, jump out the window as a suicide and aim for the stairs is pretty improbable. Or,
I see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
that's quite a way to do it, right?
Right. And in any case, like Chris comes in and she closes the window anyway. So like even if they look up later, they're going to see that the window is closed. So
right.
So all they see is Burke's body at the bottom of those stairs.
Right.
And that's probably where all their focus is at.
I'm sure even before they're known as the Exorcist Stairs, I'm sure people around there are like, look at these goddamn stairs. Like these are dangerous. Yeah. I mean, enough that Blatty writes a book about it.
Yeah, someone's gonna fall down those stairs.
Right. We should put up a sign.
Yeah, and a sign is just the Exorcist Stairs. It's right next to the Exorcist slide, actually.
Oh, you should have just taken the slide down.
You just see, it's just like whee. Yeah.
Right, and the Exorcist fire pole.
Right.
The Exorcist zip line.
Right. The Exorcist bouncy house. What's a thing that spins?
Like a carousel or
the Exorcist carousel, right? It's just Burke's head. It's just
God.
Oh. But yeah, Keenan, I think in the book, and I'll have to go back, I'll have to look, but it's kind of like a ramping up of Chris slowly realizing that Regan might have had something to do with Burke's death.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see if I can pinpoint like the kind of the moment of realization,
Mm-hmm.
before we get to, the famous, it's like, do you know what she did scene? Because that is like, we're talking about skeletons, folks. We're talking about inner demons. This is kind of like the big one that weighs on Chris for like maybe the rest of the story, right? Like, remember we introduced her and her first big thing was, the idea of death and dying and not existing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that has, like we haven't even noticed it, but that has kind of been like replaced by, like fear for her daughter and concern for her daughter. That's her big thing now. That's her inner demon. Which is weird because like now there's a death. A death literally just happened like within her very close circle of loved ones. But you would think it's like, oh yeah, like the death shadow that hangs over Chris, but she's being consumed by another demon now, right? Like concern for her daughter,
right?
And possible, later on, the possible scary truth that her daughter might have killed Burke, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's we got all of that from Ellen Burstyn's reaction, and then from here we cut to Sharon, and she has a more conventional reaction here. Her eyes widen, she opens her mouth, but like quickly covers it. Meanwhile, we hear the first words from Chris on the subject. She says, "Oh God." We cut back to her, and her hands are out. She's gesturing, and am I wrong? Is she gesturing to the scene outside? Is she like just now realizing, oh my God, all that stuff outside was for Burke?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it looks like that's the direction that she's gesturing in. Like when I was little, I was like, okay, who's she putting her hands out to? But she's like, she's putting it all together. She's piecing it out. She's piecing it together. She's reaching out in the direction of all the sirens. Like, that's what that was for.
Yeah, explaining it to herself, right?
Right. Like, I literally just passed them driving home, and I had no idea, right?
Right. And that's where Burke is.
And that is where he is, right?
Right.
I can see it running through her head now, right? It's like, that's not how people die. That's not how Burke dies.
Right. And this is one of the things that I am sort of fascinated about in my research is how we portray deaths in movies. And again, not like shoot 'em ups, Arnold Schwarzenegger kills 3 people in a shot and we don't care about that. Like right. How we actually deal with personal deaths that matter to us. And I talk about that in my fantasy class a lot when I'm doing, genre studies of fantasy. And I think that the very basic idea of the movie scene of let's all gather around now because dad is passing away and,
right.
We all get to be there and we know ahead of time that it's going to happen. And he's able to give us some wisdom and he closes his eyes and like passes away the way that we like to say it. And like that is a very, I think it's a very human wish for that type of death.
Right.
And I think that it also, in many ways it prepares us, right? That's what a lot of narratives and stories are, is to prepare us for these bigger moments in our lives. But I think at the same time, it sort of does a disservice to us because, people die, people die all the time. As Homer Simpson says, why you could wake up dead tomorrow. Right? Like death is happening all around us and it usually isn't pre-planned. It usually isn't something that we can gather people around for.
Right.
That is the good death. And the real life deaths are, again, like people get in car crashes unceremoniously. People are at the gym and they have an aneurysm and die on the treadmill,
Oh, thanks for that, Keenan. I was going to go to the gym right after this.
I mean, it happens, really healthy people,
healthy people like you, Lester.
Healthy, young, strapping people. Right, exactly. What happens? I mean, people have strokes going up the escalator at the mall all by themselves. This is, and we were not really prepared for that. And so then we, we would probably find some other thing to replace this. But when it does happen like that, all of a sudden, we say things like, oh, that's such a terrible way to go, right? Like we say that, like, well, I can't believe he would die that way. But that's the real death is,
right.
People dying alone and people, all the mechanisms that go with that of, people shitting themselves as they die, and or not being found, for like Mary Karras or whatever it is, right?
That's the second. Yeah, this is like we've already had one that's kind of like you almost just want to like go up to God and be like, hey, that was unfair, that was uncalled for. Like that's not like can we redo that again, right?
Right.
Or maybe can we not do that? Let's just not.
God's like, I don't know if that's how this works.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of in the contract, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, The Exorcist is really dealing with that, I guess. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that with Mary as well, but like two bad deaths, two more realistic. I usually hate using that term, but two deaths that are closer to what the reality of death is in our modern society, right?
With all the surprise and all the shock and all the kind of like the feeling of unreality, right? That's the ironic thing is like, the non-Hollywood death is the like, oh, it feels so unreal.
Right. Oh, and then I know we said this before, but just to underline this since we're talking about it now, but like, we want the death where I have a strained relationship with my mother, Mary Karras, and I am there with her. She passes. She looks at me and says, Dimmy, it's okay. Right. But instead what happens is that the last thing that she says is, why did you do this? Right, exactly. Why did you do this to me? Right? Like that's the reality, because she doesn't know she's dying and he doesn't know this is the last time he's going to see her.
Oh, God. That's that still stings. That still stings, folks.
See, wouldn't you rather die on the treadmill than have that happen?
He died doing what he loved, running from his problems.
Yes, he died doing what he loves, shitting himself while going down the up escalator.
And folks, again, we're getting silly again, but like we're talking about death, we're talking about like tragedy, we're talking about like all this horrible stuff, and it's like we need this, folks. So I hope you'll indulge us. I hope you'll forgive us for getting goofy now and then. But Jesus Christ,
let me tell you my favorite movie death fantasy, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's to not spoil it, but there's a mother and she is dying of cancer. And so in the movies, the tearjerkers, like, they have enough time, right, to put all this together, but she's getting divorced from her husband and she has 2 little kids. And the youngest kid, so they have time for like, okay, this is your last time to talk to your kids, tell them every wisdom you want, right? And so the youngest kid comes in and says goodbye, mommy, etc. And the oldest kid, who understands what divorce is mad at the mom, right? Because even though the dad is the scuzzbag, the mom has been protecting him from that and everything.
Right.
So she's like, come and say goodbye to me, and he won't say goodbye to her, right? And and she says to him, listen, you can do all that you want, but I know that you love me, and also, you're going to look back at this when I'm gone and you're going to feel really shitty about yourself. And I want you to know that it's okay. And I forgive you for that. And don't be mad at yourself for this later on. And it's okay. I understand. Like, ooh, like that's the stuff we want, right? That's the ultimate, like, let's all hope we can get that.
Right. Ooh. I thought you were going to tell me so we're sharing this Google Doc, folks, and we're looking at it at the same time. And Keenan has written in fantasy movie deaths,
right?
And I thought he was going to ask me. It's like Keenan or Lester. I thought he was going to call me Keenan. Yeah. It's like, we got to put Keenan down. He's calling other people Keenan. No, I thought he was going to be like, Lester, like if you like what's your preferred way to go in a fantasy movie, like, and I was all ready to be like, I want to be like Boromir in the movie where they just like pelting me with arrows and I'm just this pin cushion and I'm just like walking forward as the arrows just keep coming and I look like a porcupine by the end of it, but I stab the guy and then I just like fall on my all the arrows.
Wait, but does he also get to like kind of like non-verbally apologize for stealing the ring? Right.
No, he verbally apologizes.
Oh, he does. Okay. He verbally apologizes. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Aragorn's there, and he's like, oh, I tried to take the ring. It was the little ones, and I failed you. And it's like, no, you have not failed. He hangs around.
Right.
He hangs around for like to get that closure, to get that validation. It's like, no, actually, you didn't fail at all. You're actually Boromir. I have a list of things that I want to tell you. If you can just stay here for just a little bit. So, firstly. I really like your hair.
Right.
It's really good. And secondly, you were a really good friend to those halflings. Thirdly, boy, you got a lot of arrows in there. You must be really, really tough.
So strong.
I like your gauntlets. Can I take them when you're right.
Well, and that thing about how one does not simply walk into Mordor. What a great way of putting it.
Line. Yeah. Yes. So like I almost applauded, but then I was like, we were in a place. It's like, there's a time and a place. I don't want to. But anyway, thanks for your contributions, and if you need like a literary recommendation, I don't know where I'm going now.
Good luck in all your future endeavors. Right?
Yes.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So okay. So I wasn't. Yeah. So they actually do have that conversation, right?
Yes.
So,
yes. Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
So that's your fantasy. That's your fantasy way of dying. Yes.
I just like a Viking, just like so it's like, you can't kill me, right? Just all the arrows, right?
Right. Well, I guess I don't have, I don't want to do too many spoilers because I know that people know that Boromir or whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess my sort of favorite is, like in the disaster movies or the like survival horror movies and the zombies are coming in. I don't like zombies. I've said that before, but I'm like the nerdy one, right? I have the smarts to help people with this, right? But at a certain point, someone has to stay behind and press the valve or whatever so the rest of the group can get out, and the zombies are coming in, and I'm the one who has to stay, and I press the button and I kill the zombies that are there while the rest of
and you like sacrifice yourself, right. And it's like, yeah.
Right, and I say one pithy little thing at the end.
Yes, you gotta be, this is like game over or
Exactly, not on my watch.
Yeah. Zombies, more like undead, more like all dead.
Exactly, right. Yeah, that's the ideal. That if I have to die, I accept it. I'm brave all of a sudden, right? And I go and I do some good for it, and I let the formation of the heterosexual couple that happens at the end of genre movies. I let that happen, right? So I'm the last one to die, and the man and the woman get together, and they kiss.
Yeah.
Even though I just died. I just blew myself up. And they get to the surface world and they're like, wow. And they kiss each other.
Let's fuck.
Exactly.
But Keenan, they'll name a kid after you. So
exactly. What is his name? Cerberus Albus Potter or something stupid like that.
Jesus Christ.
Cerberus Albus Potter. You're named after two of the greatest cucks who ever lived.
Oh, I do believe there is a Harry Potter minute.
There must be.
So any crossover from that, folks, we love Harry Potter. We love you. Not so much J.K. Rowling. No, not her.
No.
But
I do think that ending is ridiculous. And everyone has been named after, everyone, all of them have been named after somebody else that we're aware of.
Wow. Yeah. I do want to, if there is one of those, if Keenan, if they ever bring back the guillotine, yes. I'm just saying, and I want to try my absolute best to just have a quip at the ready once my head falls in the basket, right? Just something, and they'll be talking about it for centuries after. It's like, did you hear about Lester Clark III? Once his head fell into the basket, and he said, "Well, fuck."
Yeah, you remember you remember this back in those days? People who they knew that the guillotine was going to take them, and they were like, "I'm gonna try to wink at you when my head is cut off, look and see if how long I have control over my body."
Right.
And the answer is 0. I'm gonna look over you and I'm gonna wink or something.
Yeah.
Or just okay, I'm gonna wait for my quip until after I've been hit with it, and instead go, "Oh."
Yeah.
Terrible noises.
Or I'll almost give away the treasure is hidden. But yeah, no, again, I really, really like the action, the business that Ellen Burstyn is doing here, right? She just received that news, right? She says, "Oh God," right? And we cut from Sharon back to Chris, and she has one hand over her mouth, right, and one hand outstretched, which to me it looks like it could be either a warding off gesture, like no, that didn't happen. I negate it. I deny it, right?
Right.
Or we could see it as her like reaching for Burke, like it's too late. Please, Burke, come back, right? Don't leave like this, right? And perhaps not knowing what to do with all of this emotion, right? Like she's suddenly feeling, she looks around, she finds the wall, and she pounds her fists against it. And this gesture is at once so explosive, but also so futile. Her fists barely make a sound against the wood, right? And her scream, folks, is also somehow like stifled. It's somehow like cut off, right? In another movie, the music would be swelling now, and her scream would hang in the air, and it would mingle with the music, and it would be this like healthy, cathartic like howl, right? Like this outpouring of grief that just flows out and engulfs everyone in the scene. But because Chris is still in shock, because her brain hasn't yet had the time to process it on some level, she might still not even believe it. What comes out sounds like constipated and pitiful, and again futile, right? It does nothing. It does nothing for Burke, and it does nothing even for Chris, right? She can't even grieve. The scream doesn't even heal her the littlest bit. But something must have happened, because now her emotions are coming. They're coming in sobs that she is trying to control. Like she's trying to hold it together. Like she's turned away from both Chuck and Sharon, trying to work through this new grief. Chuck comes over, literally crosses the threshold, right, and tries to comfort her. But you can tell he's maybe not used to doing this, or he's maybe not comfortable getting too close to Chris right now, or maybe he just knows that like there's no way he's going to be able to help Chris right now. Chris doesn't even appear to notice him. Chuck turns to Sharon, who is still in shock, turns back to Chris, and then turns and leaves. What did you make of this? Like he literally drops by, drops this news, and then is gone. Like in my mind, I still want him to be a sympathetic character, but like, so I'm trying to figure this out. Like it was so like he just left.
Right.
You would think like, I don't know. I keep on putting myself in these characters' shoes, and I would like stay and I would hug Chris. I would like, hey, do you need anything? Let's sit down. Let's get, some brandy, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we don't really know him, right? And so we don't know. It's hard to see what his defense mechanisms are because we don't really know him, right? Her defense mechanisms are to turn around and to not be seen. Like, don't watch me grieving, right? Like, don't look at me. So I don't know. Maybe his is to stay busy, right? Like he's in charge of this production still, and he has other people to tell, and like he's on task, and we have to figure all these things out, right?
Yeah.
Can I tell you this? What it says here in the script?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So this is Chuck, who is listed in the script just as assistant director. Doesn't have a name at all. So he has just said he's by the time you get to M Street, he's broken his neck. A reading from the screenplay of Blatty. Chris puts a hand to her mouth, stifling a sob. Assistant director. Yeah, I know. See you later. He closes the door behind him. That's it.
Wow. That's even wow.
Yeah, it's even colder in this. Yeah. So he's not even treated as a character, really. And yeah, folks, that just speaks to Ron Faber's like what he does with this screenplay, because like I don't know, maybe a less experienced actor would just like read that right off the page. It's like, yeah, see you later, and then just walk out. But he at least knows enough to kind of like put a little bit of himself in there. Like, how would I help somebody who's grieving? But then also be true to the screenplay, be true to the book, be true to the character, in that like he helps, but maybe this is a person who is, like Keenan said, like he is on task. Like maybe he's down there like talking to the investigators and everything like that, like right over Burke's body, right? Maybe he needs to get back there. Maybe he needs to, like you said, Keenan, tell everybody else on set about this horrible news, right? Maybe he's on task, right? And also like maybe he just like is uncomfortable with these types of situations. Absolutely. Right. He's not the emotional type. That's why he's assistant director, right? He works with people who are emotional types.
Yeah.
But I also think it speaks to, Friedkin, being a strong director. So either he came up with this idea or the actors did. Oftentimes what an actor an actor has an impulse. So the screenplay doesn't say that, oh, I'm going to cross over, but the director can see like, oh, the actor's a human being who's in charge of this person. And like, oh, it seems like he wants to go over there. Right. And so, so I don't know whose idea it was, but it could be either of them. But that's the strength of the director. I think a lot of young directors, I mean, that is inexperienced. That's how Hollywood says it. A young director, a baby director is what they call them.
Right.
If you've never, no matter how old you are. Mm-hmm, but an experienced director might be like, "Oh, Ron, don't do that." Right? No, the script doesn't say that. Let's do exactly what's in the script and nothing else. Right?
Yeah. I can also see this as, I mean, going back to kind of like the motivation of the character, I can also see this as him deciding like, oh, this is Chris and Sharon's grief. Like maybe they know Burke a little bit more. And so it's not his place. And so he's going to leave them to grieve their friend while he goes and grieves, his boss, essentially.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think he has a different relationship with them.
So, yeah, in any case, we are back with Chris now. She's trying to compose herself, but she is shaking. She puts a hand to the wall and she turns saying, Sharon. But we never get to hear what she was going to say, and I've always been curious about like what she might have been trying to say, because it actually you can see the beginnings of the next word. It's like Sharon, right? Like there's an sh. So is she saying Sharon again, or is it saying Sharon she?
She did this.
She did this. My daughter. No, like Sharon. Shut up. I know what you're going to say.
Or she's doing a Burke impression. It's like, Sharon, she just try, Sharon.
This is how I cope. This is it's like Burke's here. He's just here. No, oh God, this is horrible. But yeah, we don't know. Whatever it is interrupted when her eye catches sight of something. At first, we do not see what she is seeing, but again, Ellen Burstyn does a great job preparing us for whatever is coming next. It's really quick, folks. Go back and look. You can pinpoint when she sees the thing that we're going to talk about in a second. Her eyes dart to it, and she even does like a little double take, probably because, again, like Burke's death, what she is seeing does not make sense. But then she focuses on it. Realization dawns. It's all on Burstyn's face here. Confusion, recognition, and finally terror. And even before we see what she is seeing, we hear it. But even before I want to talk about that, folks, she's not looking at anything. Ellen Burstyn isn't looking at anything. There's nothing like there. I'm right, Keenan, right?
The question is, would they make a contortionist go down the stairs and do this stunt when it's not going to be on camera?
Just to get her reaction.
Right. Absolutely not. Right.
No.
That just can't be the way that it is. No.
So I want to say that I like that whole like big spiel I was doing to sell Ellen Burstyn's acting about like the realization dawns and she sees it and she's not seeing anything. Like Chris is seeing everything, but Ellen Burstyn is looking at nothing, and she is acting her butt off, right? All for us.
She's gripping this clock. I just want to mention briefly, and just because we've been paying so much attention to clocks and thinking about that, like I don't know, it's interesting. And she's thinking about death, and it's not quite the same composition as when Father Marin is doing the same thing in Iraq, but we sort of have had this idea before where she's like lost in her thoughts. She's looking at this clock.
Yes.
It also appears to be almost 7 p.m. So that answers the question we had earlier.
Aha. Okay, there we go. Oh shoot! I'm gonna have to go back because there was that thing about Carl let Willie go see the Beatles, and Carl went off to do something, and Blatty's was like it was 7:15 p.m. or something like that. I'm gonna have to check.
Yes, well, I could see
we
the
should
right
know
side
exactly
of the clock.
What time it is.
Well, yeah, it looks to me like it is approaching 7. We don't see the clock fully on, but we definitely see the right hand. This is so nerdy. This is so movies by minute format. We could see the right side of the clock. And none of the hands are there, so it is definitely not yet, not 7 yet.
Well, there we go.
There we go. That's the nerdiest thing we've ever done in this show, is looking at this damn clock. But okay.
But yeah, so Chris sees something, but we don't see it yet. Before we see it, we actually hear it. First through the music, right? I believe we are still listening to Polymorphia here, and we get this like skittering, scuttling, plucking of strings, which again makes you feel like, as our friend Ian Hinden said, like spiders are crawling all over you, right? And even as we are registering that, we hear the sound of feet, hands, like what could it be? the music swells and we are presented with a shot of Regan bent over backwards, crawling on hands and feet upside down the stairs in a motion which is anything but human. Again, no time to react, no time to register. From here, we cut to Regan skittering straight at us. We might even recoil in our seats. She opens her mouth, and it is just a red, gaping hole filled with blood. We hear this unearthly gasp, and we know this is not Regan's voice. From here, we cut back to Chris, hands out as she says, "Oh my God." Again, perhaps her hands are out here to like ward off this creature, but to me, it looks like they're reaching out to Regan, like terrifying as she may be. Like mom is reaching out in another like futile attempt to help, right? Mm-hmm. We hear the demonic voice again, and then the screen goes black. And that's how it could have happened. But how about this? Folks, you are in for a treat here because on this episode, you're sort of getting 2 minutes in one because there is an alternate cut of this scene, which is slightly different. Now, before we get into this alternate scene, Keenan, and am I correct in saying the one that we just saw with the bloody mouth and the demon voice, this is exclusively TVYNS, the version you've never seen, right?
Right. This is from the 2000 re-release, and I went back and tried to read the Roger Ebert review of the new release, and his review of the version you've never seen is kind of frustrated. It's sort of like, hey, The Exorcist is great, but you know what you really are reading this review for is to hear about the changes they've made to this perfect movie. So here's what it is. And so as I said before, he says that the Spinal Tap scene, the scenes at the beginning are very useful. I do realize he does have something about your favorite scene about the talk on the stairs that we'll talk about later. Okay. And he says, number 3, we see the spider walk, an infamous scene much discussed by Exorcist buffs, in which Regan is seen walking downstairs upside down crab-like. This shot strikes me as a distracting stunt, and since it exists in isolation from the scenes around it, feels gratuitous. I feel the same way.
Interesting.
But this is the most influential film critic on me, so maybe I'm just copying him without realizing it.
Well, I would agree. Yeah, like, and I want to hold off on that, on my opinion about this spider walk scene, because first I want to talk about this alternate one. This alternate version was never released as part of any version, at least to my knowledge.
Right. Yeah, I've never heard of this.
Yeah, and so, folks, here's where it gets spooky. Because I specifically remember somehow seeing this scene, the one we're about to describe. I remember seeing this one first, and then later seeing the one that we just saw with the blood and the like the demon voice, and thinking, oh, they changed it. So how the hell did I manage to see this second deleted scene if it's not part of any of the versions, right? Unless I'm wrong about that. Unless like they put it on TV or maybe, right? I'm already being a skeptic here. Maybe I rented the DVD and it's like, DVD extras, deleted scene. Yeah, I'll tell myself that, right? Yeah. Rather than I was possessed or my TV was possessed. Like I'd much rather have that be the truth. So yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's get into it here. So this deleted scene is actually a bit closer to what happens in the book. The spider walk itself is the same. However, when Regan reaches the bottom of the stairs, she flips around so that she's right side up again. And we get a close-up of her face as an elongated tongue darts in and out of her mouth. It actually reminded me more of an anteater, which is somehow worse. Right. There's a prosthetic on her tongue that makes it like twice as long, right? But that's the thing. It's not like ridiculously long, right? It's not so long that you would register it as a prosthetic, right? It's not like Krampus long, right? Or like Looney Tunes, like you see something that you really, really like long, right? And it's there and gone so quick that you barely know what you're seeing anyway. And then Regan begins to crawl towards Chris and Sharon. In the book, she's specifically going after Sharon, trying to lick at her ankles. And that prompts them to like call the doctor like immediately in the middle of the night, right? And then, once again, the screen goes black. Now, Keenan, so you were saying of these two spider walk scenes, you would find the one in TVYNS more disturbing, correct?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Oh.
No. I don't like either of them.
Oh, okay.
But I think this one is better at hiding the fact that that's not Linda Blair doing the spider walk, this alternate version. So one of my problems with the 2000 version that we see is that we're using a body double.
Yes.
And we have her name, right? Annie Miles,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Annie Miles is the contortionist. And when we're using a body double or a stunt double, usually we're using everything in our power to make you not look at that person's face, right? We're trying to trick you into thinking it's the same person. In the version that you've never I keep saying it wrong. The version you've never seen, face is coming right at us, right to the camera.
Yes.
And we're being asked to look at it. And we have blood effect that's coming out. So it's impossible for us not to look at that face. And every time we do that, I see that it's very clearly not Linda Blair. So I think it's just a much shoddier job. In this alternate version that I think you prefer, we don't ever look at a face when it's not Linda Blair's, which I think is a stronger choice there.
Yeah.
The licking is a little odd. And again, like I don't want to judge this because when you put it in context of the film and with the music and the color correction that they'd be doing, etc., it might be scarier to me. But here it looks a little silly in the cut that we see right now.
Interesting.
So I'm taken out of it a little bit. I'm laughing a little. Again, if they when you're watching a deleted scene, it's totally not fair to judge a deleted scene because it doesn't have all the stuff done to it that the finished film will have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is something just sort of strange about the lickingness of it. Sort of sexual in a way that the movie doesn't do, like with it leans into that part. I mean, we just saw Reagan saying fuck me, right?
Right.
And it goes there. And this one, I don't know if I believe Linda Blair getting that part of it. It feels like she's being asked to do something she doesn't quite understand.
Okay, so like her performance of like being this kind of like lewd demon is not coming across. It's like, just crawl on your hands and knees and like stick your tongue out. Yeah.
Again, I don't want to judge it, and it's edited by it's like an initial. It's not a fine edit. It's a rough cut that someone put on a DVD extra. So this isn't what we would see in the finished version. But
right. So for me, I actually think the deleted scene, the deleted one, is a little bit more disturbing. I can't put my finger on why, other than it seems less obvious, more random. I don't know. Like you'd think the one where she's bleeding from the mouth would be the more disturbing one. Like how did that happen? Is she vomiting up blood? Has she been like biting the inside of her mouth? It's like this poor girl. What's happening, right? That's terrifying because she's injuring herself, right? That's horrible. But this one is just so much more. The word that keeps coming to my mind is inappropriate. She's licking Sharon's ankles, right? Or she's trying to, right? This is a girl that Sharon has helped to raise. We've said it before. She's like a big sister, right? And this kind of interaction is just like gross. Right. But yeah, Keenan, like you said, right? Like it's almost like a sexual thing, right? And which just it makes it so much more disturbing. I mean, the demon certainly does that kind of stuff in later scenes. Like he has already done that stuff, like with the doctors, right? Like she's standing up, she's hiking up her shirt, or her skirt, and just like, oh, fuck me. So like, this isn't like, oh, this is shocking. The demon has never done this before, right? But again, it's just like this like it's bleh, it's rude, it's inappropriate. if she were crawling around trying to bite their ankles, I would be less disturbed. I'd be like, okay, she's acting like a snarling beast, right? But this is just so much worse to me, right?
Right. So this is one of the more controversial parts of The Exorcist. The Exorcist fandom, I think, is pretty split about the spider walk. I don't think I'm the only one under the sway of Roger Ebert who says that this is the wrong thing to do here. And then we have this alternate one. I'm glad you showed that to me. That's really interesting. Yeah. I'm looking at an article from Screen Rant by Michael Kennedy, and this is updated 2 weeks ago from when we're recording this. This is a pretty new update here. Why The Exorcist deleted then restored Reagan's infamous spider walk. And so he's talking about the history of it and people's general ideas of it. And again, it's as we see from the Roger Ebert review in 2000, he had heard about this without ever seeing it. It was part of the Exorcist fandom. He says this is the famous spider walk that these Exorcist nerds have been talking about this whole time, and saying like, please put that in because it's in the book, obviously, and somebody probably saw it, in the dailies or on set, and was just like, well, Jesus, that has to be in this movie. And then when it's cut out, it's like, oh, So this is Michael Kennedy, and he says, the Exorcist spider walk scene changes the entire movie. It's amazing how one relatively short sequence can change an entire movie, but the Exorcist Stairs scene dramatically improves the film. Reagan's possession starts out incredibly slow before she turns fully demonic and her appearance shifts. There are a few moments here and there that signal all is not right with the child, such as her interrupting Chris's party to urinate all over the floor. It's not quite what happened, but that's fine. The Exorcist spider walk scene adds crucial evidence that Reagan isn't unwell and that her possession is genuine, making her transformation a little less sudden. In addition, the Exorcist Stairs scene ramps up the tension tenfold. While The Exorcist is often regarded as the greatest horror movie of all time, its pacing does suffer a bit at the beginning of the film. We could disagree with people. I still appreciate you, Michael. I disagree very much. But, he says, this deleted scene would have added more horror in a much-needed space, as well as further convince audiences that Reagan's affliction is indeed demonic possession. I think that's I think that's a good point.
Okay. So he's for this addition.
Yes, and so his point, if I could summarize, I believe, is that this is where we cannot, this is she's not sick, she's not anything else. This is not just what crazy people do. This is now clearly in the demonic state.
Okay, well, see, like I agree with him, and I don't, right? Like I'm for the spider walk scene, but I don't think for the same reason as him.
All right.
Yeah, I think like the shaking. We've already had the shaking bed. Right? Like, and the bed was obviously shaking not by Reagan.
Right. So why do you like this scene in the movie?
So I think that it goes to what we were speaking about before, Keenan, and also what Ebert was talking about. Like, actually, the reason that Ebert doesn't like it is kind of the reason that I do like it.
Cool.
And going kind of back to what we were talking about, how this movie deals with tragedy and death in this kind of like disrespectful, unkind way, right? This is, Chris has just had a tragedy. Chris has just lost her best friend, a father figure, a mentor. This is something that she is dealing with. And immediately after doing this, because we know, the demon did this, immediately after doing this, it's almost as if the demon is now mocking her and not giving her time or space to grieve, and mocking her in the worst possible way by like puppeting her daughter down the stairs and doing, at least in the alternate version, right, which is closer to the book, doing this like really gross, maybe not necessarily dangerous or lethal thing, but just like really disrespectful, gross thing. When Chris like needs to have space and grieve and like have all of these like emotions, this demon is using her daughter, whom she also loves, as like this weapon against her, and not even allowing her the headspace. She can't even retreat within herself to like say goodbye to Burke, because now her own daughter is like chasing after her, on all fours, trying to like lick at her and Sharon's ankles, right? Like it's almost like human blasphemy. It's blasphemy to grief, right? It's
robbing her of that time she needs, or whatever, that headspace she needs.
Precisely, yeah.
That's really interesting, because I was saying that, Chris is so focused on her daughter, et cetera, and then Burke's dead, and that's the end. Of course you have to pause it, even if your daughter is, mentally ill and really needs help. Like, someone died, that takes precedence. And so,
and she doesn't know how bad off Reagan is, so Burke's death is going to take precedence over that. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, so that's why I when I say I like it, I don't I don't like it. I was like, oh boy, here comes the spider walk scene. But I can see why, like, it's an effective scare. It's an effective like just gives you the
right.
Yeah. And I can see why, Blatty put it in, and I can see why Friedkin decided to have it put in. I will say though that the one that's in our version, the version you've never seen, right, with the blood. So you say you don't like that one because, like, we can clearly see that it's this contortionist, this Ann Miles,
I think
right?
You have to pretend it's not.
I personally don't like it because it ends so abruptly.
Yes, that's my other trouble with it. So what the version? What's it called?
the version
you've never seen, TVYNS. What it makes us want to believe is that happened, and then we never talk about that again.
Right.
Right? Like there are no repercussions for it.
Yeah. She comes halfway down the stairs. She goes, and then like there's a pause.
Right.
And then she just scuttles backwards and back up the stairs.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then Chris is like, well, maybe we should call the psychiatrist.
Right. Uh-huh.
So like, yeah, I like the, in the deleted scene where they literally have to like hold her down, right? And she keeps on trying to, to get at Sharon, to get at Chris. And that's when like I say, just call the doctor, call him now, right? Which is closer to like how the book goes. It's like get him out of bed and have him come here immediately, right? And they just like they have to wrestle her to the ground. And again, another loss by Captain Howdy. You can imagine, because it's not a like a Benny Hill chasing them around the house. They immediately dive on her and they hold her, right? Again, it's I guess an embrace by necessity, but it's still an embrace, right? So that's how that scene ends, rather than fade to black as we got this red mouth going blah,
Right. Well, again, this is unique in, I mean, well, at least at the time, this has become more common now of finding deleted scenes from classic movies that are fucking perfect on their own, and now we're tinkering with them. That's something that Spielberg and George Lucas were doing at about the same time as the Exorcist was with Friedkin and Blatty. So I hesitate to criticize our movie. I think it is pretty perfect, but some of the things from the 2000 version I can really do without.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, please let us know what you think. Do you prefer one or the other of the versions of the spider walk scene? Would you rather have the whole thing just cut out, right? Let us know. theexorcistminute@gmail.com. But before we move on, we got to give credit here, folks. This famous scene, this spider walk, was done by Anne, or I guess sometimes Annie Miles, actress, stunt girl, model. So she grew up riding horses in Arkansas. So horses seem to be like the hidden character of this story. It's so weird. We got Reagan loving horses. We got Linda Blair loving horses and riding horses, right? And then this girl, Ann Miles, like she rides them professionally, right? We got Sharon, who is dating one.
That's a big one. Dating a horse.
That's a big. Wasn't there another one? I thought we had like one more horse reference somewhere that like we were reading somebody's biography and was like, oh, horses again.
Oh, I don't know. There are horses in the Iraq sequence, I believe, right?
Oh, well, there you go, right? Yeah. And then, of course, Keenan, I find that like signed first edition, we talked about that on the show, right? Like me going to the bookstore, right? And like I finally get it, and I have to take a picture, for the social medias. And Keenan, did you notice the book that's behind it in the picture that I took?
That's a giant horse.
That is
by someone like Rob Lang and Nicola something.
It's a folks. If you go back, if you're part of the Compelling Conversations listener group, right? You can see it. I posted it in there, right? I'm still in the bookstore, and I had to take a picture of my newest purchase. Not going to say how much I spent, but like I propped it up against another book, and I didn't notice until later. It's a big old horse's face.
Giant horse.
It was a giant horse's face, and I didn't even notice until after the photo. But The Exorcist, the book I bought, is covering most of it except its eye, almost as if it's winking at us. So yeah, horses. We can't get away from horses. Even though there isn't a single goddamn horse in I guess in Iraq, right?
I think.
Yeah, but there isn't a single goddamn horse in Washington, right? We are haunted by horses and horsemans. But yeah. So let's get back to Ann Miles here. So she rode horses from like 1958 to 1966. She became the busiest stunt girl on the East Coast and one of the top commercial models in the 1960s and 70s. And then by the 80s, she was working as a theatrical hairstylist on Broadway.
I also saw that at Florida State in her undergraduate, she went there on a gymnastics scholarship. So that would help her, I suppose, or work with her contortionism. But she's also an actor. She studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and at the Strasberg Institute in New York.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
Yeah. Good find of theirs, right? We have an actor who is also a contortionist.
Yeah, it says on the IMDb trivia, it says Anne Miles' biggest fans are the grandchildren of her neighbor. They love watching the spider walk on the internet. They know who actually did it, and they refer to Anne Miles as the stunt lady with ketchup in her mouth.
Oh, that'd be the worst part of it, is having to perform with ketchup in your mouth.
Oh my gosh, right? I mean, but to be fair, like that blood does not look like blood.
Right.
That looks like red paint.
Yeah,
it looks like ketchup.
I get it. It feels unfinished, so I don't know. I don't want to judge the stuff that they decided was a deleted scene they're not going to put in with the prosthetic, but the stuff that they actually put in the film, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, and folks, I'm gonna link all of this stuff, all the Anne Miles stuff, and also the footage of the other scene that she also performed. This was all done like during the filming, and that scene just was never revealed to us, except to me when I was very young. I don't know how I got a hold of it, but yeah. So that's Anne Miles. So what do we got now? We got Linda Blair, Eileen Dietz, Mercedes McCambridge, and now Anne Miles. That's 4 women who helped in bringing this character to life, right? 4 women out of, according to Eileen Dietz in this podcast I listened to, at least 5? That's what she said in an interview I listened to. But I have no idea who the 5th woman could possibly be. Do you?
I have not seen that, no. Okay. I believe her that there'd be more than one person there, but...
Yeah. So there you go, folks, right? As of this recording, Lester and Keenan have no idea if there is a 5th woman or who that woman might actually be, but we're sure as hell going to try to figure that out. And if you know, please write in and let us know.
If you are that woman.
Yes, come on the show. We'd love to have you. But again, folks, just think of that. This one character who continuously and famously holds the top spot in scary monsters, in what some have called the scariest movie of all time. We've mentioned the AFI lists before. We've talked about how women aren't fairly or equally credited for the work they do, for their performances they give. But this monster, this creature, this thing that has affected so many people, the subject of so many nightmares, launched a franchise, right? It was solely the work of 4 to 5 women. Like no dude can claim ownership of this character, this performance. Maybe Blatty and Friedkin, but who cares about them, right? Like I'm talking about like the bringing to life of this character, right? The scariest character in horror history, in movie history even, right? Like I just find that really interesting.
Right.
Now, in both versions, the screen goes black. In this version, at least the version we've never seen, right? It stays black for quite a while. And then out of that blackness, a voice that we have never heard before begins to speak. It says, "When I touch your forehead, open your eyes." And it's as if our eyes are open and we see a man's hand passing over Reagan's face. She seems to be in bed or in a chair, and at least for the moment, her eyes are still closed. Who is this man, and what is going on? We'll have to wait until the next minute to find out. For now, that is all my notes. Keenan, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think we covered a lot.
All right. Yes, we certainly did. And folks, I am so excited because we got another message. This is from our good friend Mike. So he wrote us again, and he says, "Hi, Lester and Keenan, still continuing to really enjoy the show." This is in response to minute 56, actually. He says, Keenan mentioned he's a fussier actor than Chris MacNeil. I can't remember if either of you have addressed this in an earlier minute, but do you have any thoughts about why Blatty wrote this story in which the mother is a famous Hollywood actor? It seems kind of meta and doesn't seem to me, and I've still only seen the movie once, to have too much bearing on Chris's relationship to Reagan. So I'm not criticizing the choice. Chris's concern and love for Reagan is totally believable. It's relatable in a way being a famous actor isn't to most people. And then he contrasts this. He says, for example, Toni Collette in The Sixth Sense, the fact that she's struggling to keep everything together, including some non-glamorous workaday job, maybe not even specified, I can't recall, as her child is suffering some supernatural affliction, as Reagan is, underscores the reality of it all. And he says, I know you've both mentioned the realities of being an actor that many of us non-actors don't know about. I'm not saying acting is not hard work and workaday in many respects. I'm simply curious if you have any information or hypotheses about why Blatty chose to make Chris a famous actor.
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a nice answer that's like, oh, this makes it all nice and metaphorical, etc. I've played with that sometimes of like, oh, is Chris like in a fantasy world and she's pretending to be other people, etc. And I don't know if that really bears scrutiny.
Yeah. I have a couple of things. I think first and foremost, so Blatty, I think it's on record that Blatty said he's basing the character of Chris off his good friend Shirley MacLaine.
Right.
So there is that, and it's the whole kind of like write what you know type thing. And at first I thought it's like, wow, well, I mean, you could just take Shirley MacLaine's personality and give her a more, I don't know, relatable job than this famous actor.
Maybe, but maybe her personality is so tied to being an actor, right? She was an actor from the time she was 19, Shirley MacLaine.
Right.
And her first movie was a Hitchcock movie,
There you go. Yeah. I thought about it a little bit more after Mike posed us this question, and I thought, well, in the 1970s, was there any other job that a single mother could have that would be able to afford her 88 doctors?
Right. That is a very good point. Absolutely.
Like, because we're thinking about like other than a doctor herself, right? But then if she's a doctor, that would be a different story, right?
Right. Because then everybody is saying, I don't see how you could operate on your daughter.
Right. Yeah. I can't operate. I can't perform this exorcism because she's my daughter.
Right. That's a really good point. That's true. Certainly. That even someone like me who's read a lot about like 1920s and 30s Hollywood, it has to be reiterated to me like how strange it was to have these jobs for women as actors, but also directors and producers and that kind of thing, because there were more of them in the 20s and 30s than later on. But like how that would be, them making CEO level money. Right. And you could do that as a single woman or an unmarried woman or a divorcee.
Right. Because so she is. We have to remember that she is a divorcee in 1970, early 1970, and I'm trying to think. It's like, what other job option would she have available that would give her the house,
right?
That would give her the support network that she has. That would, and I think also part of the tension is that she is so famous that she's in the public eye, right? Like she doesn't want any of this getting out.
But also that she is so famous that would someone who's not famous, who says that my daughter's going crazy, be treated seriously by the medical community or get the attention of Georgetown?
Oh yeah, there you go. Right. Like would Dr. Klein even humor her at all?
Right. It's like, no, you're poor, so your daughter is just insane, right? Yeah. You're rich, so your daughter is eccentric.
Yeah, right. It's a disorder of the nerves. It's not,
right.
She's not cuckoo banana pants.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Lester. I like that a lot.
I'm like, that's the only and I think Blatty is doing double duty here because, man, so his job is to. Like, yeah, which came first? Is it like a chicken or egg thing? Is it like, so he's I don't know, he's having lunch with Shirley MacLaine. And he said, I really like my friend Shirley MacLaine. I'm going to write a book with a character that's a lot like her one day. Right. Or is it like, ooh, like I heard about this thing in one of my my classes at Georgetown University, this thing called possession. And, and this little boy is possessed by the devil. I want to write that story, but dang, I need this to be plausible. Like I need this to be believable from, from a realistic standpoint where like this lady can't go to the police. She, but she's able to afford all these doctors because like, I think that's part of it is that if we had a person who makes less money, there would be questions of like, well, you went to one doctor and they couldn't figure out what it is. You didn't go to 88 doctors. Right. But I think the fact that like she like and she says like in the movie, she says 88 doctors. Right. The fact that like the very, very best doctors can't figure out what's wrong with her daughter and like we need a person of that status who can afford 88 doctors. Right. Which, by the way, Keenan, 88 doctors. Does that mean 88 doctor bills?
If you have to,
or is it like a collective thing?
But no. If you have to ask, you can't afford it, Lester.
Yeah, because you got Dr. Klein, you got Dr. Tanny, you got Dr. Barringer. Wait, also, like 88 doctors, is Dr. Klein and Tanny included in that, or did they make it 90?
No, I think they're included, and then the hypnotist too. That's a different doctor.
Okay. God,
and you gotta pay your radiologist, Lester.
You got to pay your radiologist. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So okay. So now the numbers starting to fill up. But I was thinking it's like 88. It's such a specific number. It's like you wouldn't say it's like hundreds of doctors or it's like 20 doctors, right? It's like 88 doctors. Like it sounds like it's like I used to be the drummer for 88 doctors. There's a cover band or something like that.
One last thing about Shirley MacLaine that I'm not actually sure of is that in the 90s when I was a kid, she was most famous because her career wasn't as big. She was most famous for her personal life as a mystic. But I'm not actually sure when she started having those beliefs or sharing those beliefs. I don't know if that was when she was at the height of her stardom in the 60s, whether that was part of her life then. But she was open about reincarnation and spiritualism and crystals and that sort of thing, similar to how Nancy Reagan was known for that in the 90s.
Oh, okay. So like almost a bit of a Mary Jo Perrin.
Right. I don't know the timeline. I'm not sure when Shirley MacLaine started being vocal with those. And then after she was in the 90s completely pilloried in the media for that, I think she has been less open about it.
Interesting. Huh.
Or she's changed her views, which happens when you have someone who's in the public life for decades.
Yeah. Well, I can think of one other thing also. In the book, there is this little subplot of Chris getting her first chance to spread her wings as an artist. She gets like a directing opportunity, so she can direct, right?
Right.
And there's this whole conversation with her and Burke. Oh, it hurts just to say his name. There's this whole conversation with her and Burke where he's kind of like guiding her through the process and talking about all the things that you need to remember and keep in mind as a director, right? And it's like this wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and like it's actually like it's a 3-parter film called Faith, Hope, and Charity, and it's like 3 short films in one.
Okay,
and hers is Hope. And so she's talking to the doctors, and she's, and the doctors are like going through the process of like, we're going to have to keep your doctor, or we're going to have to keep your daughter here. She's going to have to be, have like 24-hour surveillance and like all this stuff. And Chris sort of like sags, and they're like, what's wrong? And she's like, nothing. I just lost hope. And it's the idea that like, because the AD was like, hey, you have to be present for this. Like, otherwise you're going to lose your opportunity. Like, this is the one thing in your career that you've been fighting for tooth and nail is to get this job as a director. And now suddenly your daughter's sick and you're saying you can't like come out to the set. Like, you need to be here. And she keeps on like putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then that one scene in the book where it's like, no. Like, you're going to have to be present here with your daughter like this whole time. And she just kind of like, I just lost the movie. Like, then I'm not going to, and she makes the right choice. But I think it's that Blatty is putting that in front of us, saying like, look at what, Chris is choosing between, right? Her daughter or like her career. And there's a part later when Captain Howdy is like shouting that at her. It's like, you did this to her. You put your career before your daughter. Right. And I don't know if that would hit as hard if she was a waitress or something like that. Right. So yeah, I think that's part of it as well. Really, really good question, Mike.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to think about.
Yeah, right. Because that's always kind of like struck me as well. Like we were talking about like in the April Fool's episode where like the parodies don't even mention that she's a famous actress, right? Like sometimes they don't even get like her character right. It's just a mom, right? Sometimes the dad is even there. So yeah. So this is it's a weird thing that you don't really think about until you're like closely examining this movie in this book.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, Mike. And yeah, folks, if you have questions or if you have an idea, an answer to Mike's question, please write into us, theexorcistminute@gmail.com. And yeah, let's keep this discussion going. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it, Keenan. Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. So Keenan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time, The power of alternate versions compels you. The power of alternate versions compels you. The power of alternate versions compels you. Okay, now we're in the Bronx. The power of alternate versions compels you.
The power of alternate versions compels you. Wait, we do that. The power of alternate versions compels you.
This is a version where our mouths are covered by a membrane of skin.
That's the best one.
Yeah, that's the. Oh, and folks, you can't hear it auditorially, but my fingers are now hot dogs. And my lover is my tax preparer. Oh,
that's such a sweet scene.
I really like it. Yeah.